Welcome back to F1 B-Lodge DS on YouTube. You guys know how we do things around here. We take a look at the most interesting F1 news stories, you send us the articles, and we do a deep dive to uncover all the juicy details. This time we're looking at Red Bull, more specifically Checo's departure and Lawson stepping into that seat. And you guys sent in a ton of articles, so let's get into it.
It's really quite something. The brutal nature of Formula One. Early this year, we were all talking about Checo's championship hopes. Now he's out of Red Bull entirely. Performance really is everything in this sport. If you're not performing at the top of your game, well, you can be left out in the cold.
Absolutely. It just goes to show the pressure these drivers face. But for those who may not have followed everything that's happened this season, Checo had a good start, even outscoring Verstappen in a few races. But then, well, things took a turn. A lot of these articles focus on the financial impact of his crashes this year.
Yeah. And not just small fender benders. One of the articles I read even gave a cost breakdown for each of his crashes. And it was crazy. Like Monaco, Canada, Austria. Each of those was over €1 million. Nearly 5 million in total. That's a ton of money.
5 million?
Yeah.
Wow. So how does that even affect the team's budget? I mean, Formula One is so expensive as it is.
Yeah, it's not just about fixing the car. Every euro spent on those repairs is a euro that can't be spent on developing the car for next season. Maybe they can't do some upgrades they had planned, or they have to delay wind tunnel testing. They could even have to reduce personnel. It can really have a knock-on effect.
So these crashes affect more than just Checo. They potentially hurt the whole team's progress. And on top of that, the articles point to the widening gap in the championship standings between him and Verstappen.
Right. And if you think about it, those lost points are probably what caused Red Bull to lose the Constructors' Championship, a title they've won for the past 2 years.
It's like a domino effect. One mistake leads to another. But some of these articles point out that it wasn't all about the crashes. They suggest there might have been a mismatch between Checo's driving style and the direction that Red Bull was taking with the development of the RB20.
Yeah, that's an important point to remember. Car development in Formula One never stops, and teams are always making upgrades to benefit their lead driver. But for the other driver, it can become more and more difficult to adapt, almost like trying to fit into a shoe that's made for someone else's foot.
Okay, so it's possible the car was becoming more and more suited to Verstappen and harder for Checo to drive, even without all the crashes. But let me be clear here. We are not saying that Verstappen had anything to do with Checo's departure. Some articles hint at tension, but we only want to talk about reported facts, not just speculation.
Right. What we know for sure is that the pressure was building on Checo. Actually, a few articles quote Helmut Marko, Red Bull's motorsport advisor. He hinted at potential changes before the announcement was even made.
So you're saying there was a sense that Checo's time at Red Bull was coming to an end, so Checo's out. And now Red Bull has announced Liam Lawson as Verstappen's new teammate. You've been following Lawson's career for a while now, so tell us about him. What are his strengths and what kind of challenges will he face?
Well, he's a product of Red Bull's junior driver program. And people know him for his aggressive style. No holds barred, really. Some people like that, others don't. But there's no denying that he's very fast and very talented. He's had good results in Formula 2, and in his very short time in Formula 1 with AlphaTauri, he definitely showed his potential.
A few articles mention that too, how his skills from those feeder series are starting to work in Formula One. He scored points for AlphaTauri and had some pretty exciting battles with more experienced drivers. You don't often see that fearlessness from a rookie driver.
He's definitely not afraid to push it to the limit. And now he's going up against the biggest challenge of his career, being Max Verstappen's teammate. It's going to be high pressure, especially for someone who's so new to Formula One. All eyes will be on him, and Red Bull will have high hopes for him. Yeah, it's a real trial by fire for him, but it's also an amazing opportunity to be able to learn from one of the greatest rivals in the world. I just wonder if he'll be able to handle the pressure and get some consistent results. That's what Red Bull is going to expect from him.
For sure. And we can't forget the financial side of this driver swap either. Perez was signed through 2026. And usually when someone leaves a Formula One contract early like that, there are some pretty intense negotiations.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Lots of the articles are talking about a big payout for Checo. One even mentioned $20 to $30 million. That's a ton of money, even for a team like Red Bull.
Wow, 20 to 30 million. That's serious. So what does Red Bull think about when they're making a decision like this? Is it all about performance? Or are there other things they have to consider?
Well, it's not that simple. Obviously, performance is the main thing in Formula One. But you also have to think about the team dynamics, their long-term plans. even marketing and things like that. Replacing someone as experienced as Checo with a young guy like Lawson sends a message that Red Bull wants to focus on young talent. Maybe they're even building their driver lineup for the future.
Big move for sure. Shows how much they believe in Lawson's ability. But now the pressure is on. He needs to prove he can be Verstappen's teammate and consistently perform well enough to justify the money that Red Bull is putting into him.
Absolutely no doubt about that. But remember that Red Bull is known for taking chances on young drivers. They've developed some of the best drivers the sport has ever seen. Vettel, Ricciardo, Verstappen. Clearly they see something special in Lawson.
Yeah, you're right. Red Bull's junior driver program is world famous. But let's get back to Checo leaving Red Bull. We were talking about those expensive crashes earlier, and one article even went into detail about how much damage was done in each crash.
Oh yeah, it was like a price list for Formula One crashes. Pretty fascinating, to be honest. In Monaco qualifying, he hit the barrier. Cost Red Bull over €1 million. Then in Canada, he had a tangle with Stroll. Another €1 million in damage.
And of course, Austria. He had that huge off in practice. Another $1 million gone.
Yep, and that's not all. In Singapore, he hit the wall during the race. $500,000 in damage. And then in Abu Dhabi, the last race of the season, he spun on the first lap and hit the wall. Cost Red Bull almost another $1 million. 5 crashes. Almost €5 million in damage.
That has to be some kind of record, right?
It has to be up there. And remember, that's just the cost of fixing the car. You also have to think about the development time that was lost and the points that he could have scored and the effect on everyone's morale. When you think about all of that, the real cost is much higher.
Speaking of morale, what about the relationship between Checo and Verstappen? It seemed like there were a few tense moments between them, especially after that incident in Jeddah, where Verstappen ignored team orders and overtook Checo.
Yeah. Jeddah was definitely a big moment for them. Even though Red Bull tried to say everything was fine, you could just tell that both drivers were frustrated. And then there was that qualifying session in Monaco, where Checo crashed and ruined Verstappen's lap.
Some articles even said that it wasn't an accident, that maybe Checo did it on purpose. Whether that's true or not, that incident definitely hurt their relationship.
Yeah, it definitely made things more complicated. It really shows the psychological side of Formula One when you have two top drivers competing against each other, even though they're on the same team.
It's interesting how these articles all look at things differently. Some of them just look at the data, lap times, and performance. But others try to understand the relationships between the drivers and the politics of the team.
That's what makes it so interesting. You have the on-track story, which is all about numbers. And then you have the off-track story. All the rumors and drama and emotions. It's like trying to put together a puzzle.
It's true. We've been talking about a lot of negative things. But Checo was a valuable asset to Red Bull. He's a proven race winner. And a lot of these articles say that his tire management was one of his biggest strengths.
Absolutely. He's called the tire whisperer for a reason. He can make the tires last much longer than other drivers, and he's a very smart racer, especially on street circuits. That win in Monaco back in 2022, amazing drive.
So yeah, it might not have ended well, but you can't deny that he helped Red Bull a lot. But in the end, it seems like his skills weren't enough to keep up with Verstappen.
Being Verstappen's teammate is really hard. You're always being compared to someone who's pushing the boundaries of Formula One. Very few drivers could handle that.
Maybe a change of scenery will be good for Checo. Maybe he can find a team where he doesn't have all that pressure and really shine.
I think it's possible. He's still a great driver. It'll be interesting to see where he goes and how he performs.
Okay, so let's switch gears and talk about Liam Lawson. We talked about his aggressive driving and his success in the junior categories. But why did Red Bull choose him? What qualities do they see in him that made them think he was the best option?
Well, first of all, he's been in their junior driver program for a while. They've spent a lot of time and money developing him as a driver, and they obviously believe that he can succeed. A few articles talk about his dedication, his work ethic, how much he wants to win.
They've really seen him grow as a driver, and they believe he's got the talent and the mental toughness to make it in Formula One. But joining a top team like Red Bull, especially as Verstappen's teammate, that comes with a ton of pressure. Do you think he can handle it and get the results that Red Bull is looking for?
That is the question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And speaking of questions, what about the financial side of all this? Like we talked about before, Checo was under contract until 2026. And getting out of contract like that, that's going to cost a lot of money.
Yeah. One article even said it could be $20 to $30 million. A lot of money for any team, even one with as much money as Red Bull.
Oh yeah, that's a huge investment. But if Red Bull really believes in Lawson, they might be willing to take that risk. Maybe they think it'll pay off in the long run.
So maybe they see it as an investment in their future.
Yeah.
But bringing in a younger driver like Lawson, that probably saves them some money too, right?
Yeah.
His salary will be a lot less than Checo's.
Absolutely. Younger drivers don't get paid nearly as much as the veterans. So yeah, they have to pay Checo to leave. But they'll probably save money overall.
So it's kind of a trade-off. They lose money now, but maybe they save money later. Plus, Lawson might perform better.
Exactly.
But it's not all about the money either, right? Having a young, exciting driver like Lawson, that could be good for marketing too.
Oh yeah, for sure. Lawson brings something new and exciting to Red Bull. He might even bring in new fans and sponsors.
So it's a decision with a lot of different aspects. It affects their finances, their marketing, their whole future in Formula One.
And it just goes to show how complicated Formula One really is. Every decision has consequences.
It's amazing how much one driver change can affect everything. So what's the main takeaway for our viewers? What does all this mean for Red Bull, for Lawson, and for Checo?
Well, for Red Bull, it's a gamble. They're hoping that Lawson can become a champion alongside Verstappen. It could be a huge success, or it could backfire.
And for Lawson, this is his big chance to show what he can do at the highest level of motorsport.
And for Checo,
Yeah.
this is a turning point. He could try to find another team in Formula One. Maybe somewhere he can be the #1 driver. Or maybe he'll try a different racing series. Who knows?
It just goes to show that Formula One is always changing. Drivers come and go, teams rise and fall. But one thing stays the same. Everyone wants to be the fastest.
That's the truth.
Well, this has been a pretty wild deep dive. Lots of twists and turns, financial drama, and even a bit of behind-the-scenes intrigue. We covered it all today, from those expensive crashes to why Red Bull chose Lawson. What are your thoughts on all of this? Do you think Red Bull made the right decision? Let us know your predictions in the comments for Lawson's future and what Checo will do next. And as always, don't forget to subscribe to F1 Below GS for more deep dives like this.